I'm a visual effects artist in games, which apparently is a rare breed. This is not something I realized when I was in school. In fact, I was told, if I wanted to go into 2D effects, like hand animated effects, that there was no job for me out there because the 2D industry was dying at the time. But what then I realized was that while that may be true in games, or sorry, while that may be true in film, it's definitely not true in games. There's a very high demand for very artistically minded effects artists in the gaming industry. People who can design their own effects, lay out nice compositions, nice shapes, good color, and great animation skills with timing. Those skills are incredibly highly sought after at studios everywhere that I know of. I actually operate the job board on realtimevfx.com, and we see constantly the larger studios just can't fill these positions, and they're always looking. So if you want good job security, it's a good time to be a VFX artist in games. That's something that I've learned. And honestly, I'm trying to fix that. I'm trying to get it to a point where y'all can take my job, but we're a ways away from that still. There's a lot more training to be done. That's my life's mission now. I've got cards for vfxapprentice.com if you guys want to sign up for the class later on, if you get a lot from this and you want to learn more. I've also got free content on my YouTube channel, so you can go check that out at youtube.com/Jason Kaiser, just my name. Okay. I'm realizing now I should have had a nice splash image to be up here while I was introducing everything. Okay, so how many of you in here are students? I mean, we're all students technically, right? We're always learning. How many of you are working professionals? Awesome. Cool. And then who's been working in the industry for at least 1 year? At least 5 years? Wow. At least 10 years? Whoa, we got some veterans in here. Okay. You guys will school me, so you'll be teaching me. All right. I've been in the industry for 12 years. Wait, more than 12? All right. This guy's got me beat. So I've been working for about 12 years, and I've been in a few different studios, and currently have had the pleasure of being at Riot Games for the last 6 years nearly. So it's been a crazy, wild learning journey for me. So real quick, I'm just going to show you guys what we're making today. So if you come over here, no, that's the wrong one. There we go. Okay, so we are going to make this little fire. Seems simple enough, but it's deceptively challenging. And this fire was actually not done by me. So by the end of this, there will be a fire that was done. Let's do this. Come over here, create a new file. And there's our game environment, right? So now we know for concept painting, this is the hues and the colors that we want to paint on top of. So I'm just going to create a new layer over here and have at it. Simple white to start. Okay. I don't know why my brush is that big. All right, so we'll come over here to our brush tools. Oh my gosh, everything's different on this computer. Hang on, bear with me. Go to Window, Brushes. There it is. Okay, brush settings. And let's do shape dynamics. So click on that there. I can do size control. Is pen pressure. Oh. Somehow it wasn't working before, but then it magically decided to work on its own. Go computer. You can hit the F button if you want more screen real estate when you're on a laptop. That's really helpful. All right. So we're just gonna go to it here. So probably want the fire to feel something, I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of freehand it, working on concepts. Something in this sort of space, right? Let me hit G and just fill it, it's a lot faster. I could use the lasso tool as well, but sometimes I like to just see how I'm working and just go for it. Now the thing about fire is, this obviously looks terrible. And I know that, don't worry. Does this guy get paid to do this stuff? He's actually qualified. Okay, so we've got this like kind of fieriness going on. And if you come in with the eraser tool, the key to good fire is the nice negative shapes that it creates. Those sort of fiery licks. Doing something that just looks awful. And then from there, it can only get better. And this comes from just watching countless people paint this stuff and work. And these are like world-class illustrators. And typically, when they're first starting off, it's actually not very impressive. All right, so we got these little bitsy bits going on. That is a technical term, in case you're wondering. I don't know, I might actually get rid of these. Everything is up for evaluation and potential removal. So there's the chance that I might delete any part of this fire at any given point, or all of it. Right? And you need to be comfortable with that. Otherwise, you're going to hang on to really bad stuff that's hurting your composition, and it's not helping you. By the way, if you have questions at any point, if you're like, well, what did he just do? I don't understand. Or if you just want to ask about whatever in my workflow or process or anything like that, just call it out. If you wait with your hand raised, I may not see you because I'm focused on my computer. So you could just say, question, please, and I'll just pause and call on you. So please call it out as we're going along. All right, so then I switch over to the eraser. I'm going to hit F again so I can get back to my settings. So with the eraser, now I'm going to change my flow settings. Whoa, that is not low enough. It's a very heavy-handed pen. What did I do? What did I do? Oh, I deselected the layer. You got to keep track of what's happening. And it just freaked out. Awesome. This computer is going to freak out a few times. There's a reason why it's not my primary painting device. I actually heard the older Microsoft Surfaces are better. So if you want to get like a used Microsoft Surface, you're going to have better luck with painting, even though the specs on the system are lower because they used to use Wacom technology, however you pronounce it. And now they've switched to using their own, and it's busted and not good. It might be better in newer versions, but it's definitely not this one. Yeah, see, it just does this where it like scrolls for no reason. Okay, so in my brush settings, pull that open. I want brush tip shape. Why is this? It seems like it's got a fuzzy edge, but maybe it doesn't. Now I'll quit fiddling with it, move along. All right, so now that I've got the main silhouette kind of determined, I can come in and add secondary. Ugh, I don't like that. Control-Shift-Z. They recently changed the undo settings in Photoshop. Oh my gosh, I just have to go to my history. Different versions of Photoshop. It'd help if I made this bigger. There we go. I'll save you for later. All right. So we're coming into here. We got the low opacity. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. So now I can do these nice solid areas of color. Sorry, there's a bug on my keyboard. He wants to help. So now I can get these nice solid areas of color. I can switch it up. If you ever get the feeling in your painting and you're like, why am I doing this? I'm so bad. I have no idea what I'm doing. I should just stop. Just be assured that I feel the same way. As I was saying, sometimes I feel incompetent at my job. Okay, so just getting like a rough idea of everything laid in. Gonna come through smudge. Typically, just fun fact, I end up deleting my first draft almost always. So this one has a high likelihood of getting absolutely deleted because I very rarely like them. Just using the smudge. So it's just gonna kind of all blend together. Leave some areas crisp and kind of play around with it, that kind of thing. There's like 2 shapes in here I like. That might be enough to redeem it. And then you can always come through and erase again. This is where it starts getting fun, where the eraser gets a little crisp on top of the smudges. And you start seeing this like nice layered effect. I typically set a hotkey to the smudge tool, but I haven't done it on this computer. All right. I just did that again. All right. It's thinking I'm pushing some hotkey, but I'm not. No, I'm going to be using that enough. I'll just show you how to do it real quick. Go to Edit Keyboard Shortcuts. Go to Tools, Panel, find the smudge. There it is. And set that to Y. Because I will be using it a lot today. Okay. You can come back over to the brush tool. Brush tool. I swear I pushed B. I need a smaller brush for this. There we go. Victory goes to the patient when it comes to painting. All right. So there we go. No, that's not what I wanted really. Kind of check it. It's always important to zoom out and kind of check your work, see what's going on. And then we come back in. Have some fun with this. How many of you are effects artists at your studio? Yeah, you're just kind of by default, right? Because no one else wants to do it. That's how a lot of us fell into it. It's like, oh, this thing needs to be done. I guess I'm the person. I guess I'll give it a shot. And then turns out we actually really like it. And it's like, oh, I happen to like it and it happens to be in high demand. Win-win. All right. That feels kind of cool. Okay. So I'm going to kind of leave this at this state and we're going to move forward with the next part, which is something called a gradient map. Now, that's kind of cool. But that doesn't really work because I can't change the color of the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt and click on that, and it's going to just apply it to the fire and leave the map alone. It's going to link those layers together. This is something I talk about on my YouTube channel. I have a video where I do an introduction to Photoshop. If any of you are getting lost, you can just go check that out. And there's like a section of the paid class that I do that I made free on YouTube. So let's see. Justin did some really cool typical fire, but I want to do some magical fire because magic is awesome. That's why I do what I do. Put this down. Let's see. Blue and purple. It can't go wrong. Yeah. All right. So now what's happening, if my suspicion is correct, yes. What's happening is this is actually pure white. And so when I do a gradient overlay, it's not actually going to change the color of it. So hang on a sec. One thing I can do. So I want to set this as I'm going to merge these together. No, what just happened? Disconnect that and then merge them together. There we go. And then I'm going to copy that and create a mask. And I'm going to paste this into the mask channel. So what I've done is I've created a white to black color, and then I've given it an alpha that's white to black. So it's not just a white color with white to black alpha, it's white to black color with white to black alpha. And then if I just flatten that out, now our gradient map should work. We'll see if that's, oh my gosh, I have way too many of these open. I don't need actions. I don't need swatches. I do need color. I do need properties. Yeah, so now it's going to adjust for us because the color actually has depth to it. And so this gradient map can change those blacks into whatever I set it to. All right, so let's have fun with it. And I also need to, it looks like I need to adjust the actual painting itself because it's got these big areas of like flat white. And we can fix that. This isn't the most sophisticated way to get interesting color, but it's functional. It's kind of functional for us to just lay something in. Yeah, there we go. Bring in some of that dark halo effect. Cool. Yeah, I think I need to start adjusting the texture next some more. So now what's fun about this, I'll label this flame. Now what's fun about this is now when I go and make edits, it's not just black and white. I can come in and when I smudge this, it brings in those gradients with it as I'm like making my edits, which is really satisfying. Makes you feel like a better artist than you actually are. The tool's doing some magic trickery. And then your coworkers come by and sing your praises because you make such cool looking magic. Little do they know it's all thanks to Photoshop. But really it's your job as the artist to control all these tools, right? Like if you don't know how to design the shapes and get the flow working and all that, it's not going to matter what kind of filter you're putting on it. So I think the problem is really that dark halo isn't what I hoped it would be. I think I have a solution for that though. Oh, that's kind of cool. Like some areas where it's just like wisps out, kind of does a thing. This one's like probably too bright up here because once it gets further away from the heat source, it's going to start cooling off. All right, this is actually going to be pretty hard to match as a particle system, but we'll give it our best shot. Okay. Oh, there's like just a straight up circle over here. I don't know how that guy got so far away. Oh well. Just kind of tone those down. Get that one a little less on the nose. Okay. So the halo effect. So if I come over here and I double click, I can do an outer glow and perfect. No, that's not what I want. Let's get this over here. Let's make that outer glow our dark purple. Get it nice and saturated, because why not? We are not going to do precise. We're going to do soft, and we're going to, the problem I had was the spread was too high. So if we put the spread down, let me put the size up. It's picking up my little puffs of air on the microphone. Oof. It's like 2, looks like our magical number there. Maybe spread this. I'm having real trouble with this precision thing. Maybe like 15. Anyway, the exact numbers don't really matter. Just kind of do it till it feels right for whatever you're doing. So now it's got this nice darker halo to it. It feels pretty nice. All right, can come in and do a little more smudgy smudge. Again, definitely a technical term. Any questions so far? Nobody? All right. I'm going to put in some dark because I think what's happening is the alpha is colliding too much with the color. So to do that, you can control click on your layer. Whoops. No, that didn't do what I thought it would do. Sorry, you can just come over here and just lock your alpha. It's the same thing I was trying to do. I can paint in dark. See, so it'll bring in that dark color. Again, one of the really cool effects of working in Photoshop in this way is it creates these really interesting edges. And as effects artists, really, it's every tool at our disposal, right? Like, you have to remember, if it's out there, there's a good chance that you might use it at some point. We use everything from rigging to modeling to animating, different software packages to do any number of things, and all the tools inside of those software packages. Now this is behaving really weirdly because I have alpha still locked. So I'm going to I don't like how that's acting for me. And smudging those darks like that. There we go. Can I get something interesting going here? Yeah. It's looking all right. All right. Is anyone here actually following along? No? Okay. Then I'll just tell you this works for sure. You'll never actually know. The video is recorded, so they'll be able to watch it at home. Yeah? Follow along later on. That's good. Whoa. That's cool. Wait, why is it? Was I painting with like pink? That's weird. Oh, it's because the glow is that color. Yeah, with the glow off, it's all grayscale still. Okay, cool. All right, switch back to white. Kind of knock that down. Oh, geez. I kind of have to do this weird combo thing where I'm like painting with white, painting with black to get the colors to do what they want. Okay. So here we've got a fire that's representative of kind of what we want to go for. It's basically saying we want a fire kind of like this, but we want it to be magical fire. I didn't really paint the smoke coming off of it, but we'll get to that. All right, the rays of light coming next. What time are we at? So we started just recently. We started late, right? Like it was 9:40. Yeah, 9:40. Mm-hmm. Say that again. Yeah, so I haven't done this yet. Yeah, yeah, in 10 minutes. No, it took me a long time. No, this was actually done by Justin, and it'll take me the whole session to get to here, is the general idea. And if we get done early, then I'll show you some other stuff too. But my planning was that it usually takes time to get to this point in an effect. And so I'm just going to walk you through step by step my process of how to get there. But was that your question? I didn't hear that. Could you repeat the question? Yes. Can you import a particle system from 3D Studio Max to Unreal? That's your question? I would not recommend it, generally speaking. If you're talking about really high definition particle systems like clouds and that sort of thing, I guess you could use, I know Maya has a good simulation for that kind of stuff, Houdini as well. I'm not actually familiar with 3D Studio Max doing really high resolution particles. It's funny, I know some projects they've actually used 3D Studio Max as their in-game particle editor, which I would not recommend. That's a very clunky way to work. It is possible, but that doesn't mean you should do it. It's going to be painful and time consuming when the tools are there for Unreal and Unity to just do it in the engine very smoothly. And so I would recommend going that route. Whereas if you're going to try to like tie 3D Studio Max into your system, just because like it might be easier at first because like you know how to use it and you're like, yeah, I already know how to do these particles. Now I'm just going to make it in the game. But then the price you pay in the long run for not just learning that up front is going to really come back to bite you because efficiency is dropped. Also, any new people you bring onto your team, that's not a standard way to work. And so new people are going to have to ramp up. They're going to have to learn. It's going to be hard for them. And all the while, it would just be more efficient to work directly in the game engine. The only exception to that is if you're actually exporting renders of fully fleshed out clouds, and then you're just simply taking those renders and putting them on flat cards, and then animating those cards in the material and in the particle system inside of the game engine. Yeah, like sprites. Yeah, so you're talking about the Houdini engine, how it's plugged into Unreal. It is possible to integrate Houdini and Unreal. It's not the best for doing full-blown particle simulations for like something like this. I think you'd again be much better off with just like rendering it out of Houdini and then exporting that into Unreal. Yeah, like the Houdini engine does a lot of really powerful things, but that's much more driven by like a technical art perspective. Whereas I'm a visual effects artist, and so my approach is always going to be more art driven and just like handcrafted versus the more technical sort of implementation. Yeah, good questions. Any others? I'm using hard edge brushes when I'm painting these shapes. The reason I do that is actually because I need hard shapes mixed in with my soft shapes. Otherwise, it just looks blurry. If you only use soft shapes, it's very fuzzy and it's kind of like you're trying to shortcut it by just like, it's like sort of this cloud of stuff. But the hard shapes end up being what gives it its personality. Like you can see in here, some of these edges are like sharper than others, like over here, and then up through here. And that's deliberate. Other areas are soft, but you want that mixture of soft and hard because if it's just all soft, it loses its flavor. Yeah, so the first part of the question was, do I use options A, B, and C of like silhouettes and then choose one? And then character designing, usually we design silhouettes for poses. Yeah. But do you use that principle in VFX for this? I do sometimes. It really depends on the project and it depends on the artist. If it's pretty straightforward, you can dive straight in like I did here and just like start, rendering it out and figuring out what you want. The initial phase that I did was kind of a silhouette, but also I knew that it was going to have a lot of areas that were just like large and fuzzy. And if I just limited myself to this exact silhouette early on, then I wouldn't. I think it's just how your brain works, honestly. Like for this exercise, I kind of knew what I wanted in my mind, and I'm just kind of like laying it down. But pre-visualize on your brain that you exactly knew that you were going to create this version. Mm-hmm. So you had it in mind. That's true. Actually, That's kind of cheating it. And I'm going to call myself out here now because I realize I probably could have done better for you guys if I could have shown, well, how do you arrive at fire that even looks this way? So I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll save this as it is. Oh, yeah, sure. Let's just save it there. Okay. And then what? Save as PDF? No. No Photoshop. Bad Photoshop. There we go. Okay. So yes, in answer to your question, that's a great exercise, and I'm going to show that now. Your other question was, how do I know when I'm done?
Yes, like sometimes we consider us even perfectionists. So do you consider yourself
Yeah,
perfectionist?
I'm not actually. I am sometimes. It's weird. I'm like selective perfectionist. So sometimes I'm like, I want to get this done meticulously in just the right way and perfectly. But I've learned that that very rarely serves me well because I'll spend forever getting it just perfect and then look at it later and I'll be like, it actually just looks terrible in general. And perfecting that little piece didn't help it. And so what I've learned instead is like get a version done that I can show to people and like put in the game and feel it out, how it feels in the context. And usually the things that I'm learning are very different from the details that I thought were important. So like I'll throw it in and they'll be like, I don't know if I like the stone thematic for that. Maybe it should be sand or something like that, right? And I'll be like, well, I'm really glad that I didn't polish that little highlights on the stone and the shadow shapes and all that because now I'm doing sand instead. So that's a pretty dramatic example, but there's also subtle versions of that. Like with the fire, well, I'll go ahead and back it up and kind of show you what I'm talking about with the fire. So we just hide this. So like examples of thumbnails, right? Like I would just come in here with my brush. It's like, okay, so bubbly fire, right? So kind of come in and then like, I don't know. And then one more time. Just simply doing this kind of stuff, right? It's like, okay, and then the eraser, which I have completely adjusted. And then the eraser, whoa. I painted on the wrong layer. I thought I created a new layer. Oh well, but you get the idea. So there's bubbly fire, and now that's like merged onto there forever. Let's see, create a new file. Sort of save this guy out. Nope. There we go. And then I'll go back to my history and hopefully I can get back to where I was. There we go. Sorry guys, bear with me here. I did a bad thing. Okay, so this is the bubbly. There, that's better. Okay, and then I will create a new layer. Okay, what are some other types of fire you want to see? Stylized how? Oh, you want pixelated? Oh, I'll show you pixelated. So for a pixelated fire, there's a trick I'll show you. It's pretty fun actually. And to achieve a pixelated fire in game, you're probably going to just use like a post-process filter or like something in your material. that can pixelate. It's probably the smarter way to do it. But so if we do this, and notice that I'm limiting myself to just 2 colors, black and white, for the thumbnails. It's something we do in the class. I learned it from David Shovelin, who does a lot of the concept art in the class for VFX Apprentice. So, and no smudging, just this kind of thing. If you don't like it, you can sort of do that to it. Wait, I thought I locked that. Oh, that it looks like a hole there, but it's not. All right. Yeah, question.
So what's the like advantage of using just like pure black and white rather than smudging in this case?
So just for thumbnails, I want to keep it simple. I just want to convey an idea more than I want to render it out. That would be the very next stage after thumbnails. I would go in and start smudging and coloring it. Okay, so now I've got this. Whoa. Get rid of that. Okay, so now I've got this. And to get this to pixelate, I'm going to put it in its own document. This is the best way I know how to do it. So when I copied it and then did a create new, it knew already what size I wanted it. And let me see here. Let me give that a gray background so we can actually see what's going on. Okay. So here's our fire shape. If you go image size, and you want to put this way down, like, I don't know, let's try 20. No. Well, maybe 20 was actually pretty good. Let's see, 18. Okay, so now we're pixelated, right? Oh, so it doesn't really look quite like fire, so key to good pixel art is a nice crisp edge, right? You don't want too much softness and gradation. And all that. So we kind of want the iconic. I feel like it's not iconic enough. Pixel art relies heavily on very clear icons. Oh my gosh, I did it again. Drawing on the wrong layer. You guys call me out next time you see me on the wrong layer, okay? I won't feel bad. Okay. There we go. Okay. Get like the little curvy licks going on. Make it feel more fiery, just like these little arms coming off of it. And now the trouble comes when I want to scale it back up, right? Because it's like, how do I get this shape? If I just come back to image size and say, okay, what was it originally, like 106? I should have remembered. It just blurs it, right? Which isn't what you want because that's not pixely. So if you do image size and then you say nearest neighbor and then put it up to 100, you get a large pixelated image like so. And then I can paste that in here. I think it was actually like 108. So it's a pretty weird workaround, but it'll get you there. Okay, so we have bubbly fire, we have pixelated fire. What else? Anybody?
Ice smoke.
Ice. Ice smoke or fire? Let's do icy. I like that. Kind of like crystalline. That'll be fun. Okay. So I'd probably approach this in a similar way, where maybe it's like crystalline flames. Let's see here. It'll probably just look like some crystals unless it's moving. It's a really derpy way to work, I know. Let's see. So the key is going to be those hard edges to make it feel like it's crystalline and like these pointy tips. Whoops. All right. There we go. And then we'll get the, what is happening? What layer was I even on? Okay, good. I was like, was I on the right layer? Switch over to my black, because that's the rules of this. Let's see, I'll have it probably underlit, and so something like, you know, put these crystalline shapes up top. I don't know if this is actually gonna look good. I'm having my doubts. There's a shape in here, something like that. I think the crystal fire is a hard one. I think generally, if I was doing ice fire, I would just do normal fire and then color it blue. Would normally be how I would do it, but like if the constraint is just show it with white thumbnail, I'm learning very rapidly that that's not maybe what I want. But here, maybe I can save it. It's always fun to see if you can save a drawing, right? Maybe if like these tips kind of break away, so it's like kind of shattering as it comes up. It'll feel kind of fiery, like it's breaking away. What do you guys want to see next after the ice fire?
What about like a more high intensity fire, like from a rocket thruster or something?
All right, I like that. High intensity fire like a rocket thruster.
I feel like I'm sort of asking you to make a thing that I use in my game now, but because I have a rocket in my game.
Hey, you paid to be here, so why not? Ask whatever you want. This is your day. Or your company paid to be here, either way. Somebody paid some money. Oh, so you didn't pay to be here. You're like me. Oh. Somebody somewhere paid for you to be here. What am I doing? What is going on? It's like a mystery. It's always like figure out what button was pushed randomly without you knowing. It's a fun game. Nope. Oh my gosh. Good call, brush lock. Because that's useful. And somehow the opacity got turned down too. I swear this thing just pushes buttons that it wants. Highly recommend the Cintiq. It's really awesome and easy to use. Highly don't recommend this. I also hear that the iPad Pro is a great tablet for drawing on in Photoshop. Yes. Oh yeah. So we discussed that a little bit. We're just doing thumbnails. We're just doing block-ins. And the constraint was just keep it simple. We don't want to dive too far ahead. We just want to see options to kind of pitch to a team and be like, which one should I actually render out and do? And this is just a way you can, like, in just a couple minutes, do each thumbnail just to pitch an idea. It's not at all about what the final render is going to look like. Yeah. All right, rocket thruster. That one kind of got bigger than the others, but I think it worked out. It's like icy fire. You could kind of imagine like ice crystals rising up and dissolving away. Might be cool. Why not? All right, so the key to a good rocket thruster is consistent upward motion. You can actually hold shift to get like some like guidelines for yourself, and that'll help stick to it as you keep going. So, and then you add the fiery shapes kind of stuck alongside these more vertical shapes. This is why I love effects. Is like, even just with fire, you can have so much variety and crazy different experience with it. You can try stuff out. Like, I'm always trying stuff. I'm always like, I don't know, never done that before. Maybe it'll be like this, you know? It's not at all like, you put one thing in and predictably it gives you something out. It's like always an experiment. It's always just trying it. Okay, so I'm getting really sloppy and messy here with these little details and things. That shape's kind of wandering off. Let's sharpen up these tips with the eraser. Whoops. It's kind of sparse. I feel like it needs a really hot base to make it feel less like sparse up there. And then where we've got the positive shapes, these like strands and fingers and things coming up are like our positive shapes. We should probably put in some negative shapes as well down in here. So I can hold shift for those as well. I can start carving out some things in here. Let's size this up. It's a little too small of a brush now. And then do an eraser tool. Oh no, something happened. I think my hand keeps touching things over there is what's happening. All right. Trying to put this in perspective. So these ones over on the sides will be a little further up than the ones over here in the front. I don't really know what the fuel source is, so maybe it's like licking up off the ground. So kind of try to do a little bit of perspective licks here. This is probably the longest answer to a question because the guy asked, can you do thumbnails? Like, what about a thumbnail stage? And now I'm still answering the question about a thumbnail stage. I don't know what is even happening. I'm on the wrong layer. That's what's happening. All right. Maybe it's kind of like curving up into this. So it has just, it's burning off the ground, but it's burning so hot that it kind of whooshes upwards, sort of thing. Maybe make some of these shapes a little more interesting as well. Concepts are often aspirational and just inspiration. It's not actually something that you can nail completely, but that doesn't mean that they're not helpful, because what they do serve to do is they get the teams on the same, they get your team on the same page so that everyone understands, like, oh, yeah, like something like this. I could see it, the jet fuel like rising up off the ground, or oh, the crystalline fire, or whatever. And they'll start having good conversations that are actually productively moving you toward a goal, versus, yeah, like really cool magical fire, just go for it, and then you as the artist don't really know what the heck is going on. Like, you're going to get something done and show it, and the art director is going to love it, and then the concept artist is going to hate it, and they're going to start debating what's going on. But if you instead can get ahead of that and do a little concept for them before you start making it in game, then it's more likely to get people on the same page. And I'm realizing that the black doesn't work as well on this because it's so detail-y, and it just looks like holes. But there you go. So there we have variety of flames and styles. So you could come through here, and the one, probably the equivalent of like what I did before, would just be probably this fire here is the closest to it. Like, if I'm like, what if it's like this? So let me go back to that one. Unlock the alpha. So this is just going to be stringier to be kind of like what I actually ended up going with. This is, we'll call this one stringy wispy fire. And this is more or less what we landed on, right? So now you can see like the 5 types of fire from the thumbnails that we might go with. Create a neat and tidy little folder. All right. So we've been going for an hour. If you guys need a break, go for it. I'm just going to keep going till 2 hours, and then we'll take a break at that point, and for like 10 minutes, and then we'll come back in. All right. So I got my concept. Let's start making some in-game assets. Some assets to be used in-game, namely this one. And I'm probably going to skim over the others, but this one is important because it's kind of the main part. So what we're looking at here is a sprite sheet that has 4 variations of flame on it. I'm going to start with just one, and then if we have time, we'll do all 4, and I'll kind of show you how that's all pieced together in the game engine. I can close this guy. Now you guys all know how to do pixel art. Bonus. We actually use that technique quite extensively on League of Legends for the arcade skins. So in League, there's a skin line. Does anyone play League of Legends in here? A few of you? Awesome. So there's a skin line called Arcade, and it's like a throwback to classic games in a 3D game. So everyone else has like a regular 3D skin, but then your skin is all pixelated, and all the effects on it are pixelated. I guess the actual character is not pixelated, but the effects are. And so we use that technique to kind of make pixelated looking textures in the particles so that it felt like it was a throwback to those classic games. Pretty cool. All right, so we've got the concept. We've got this. I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to make it 256 by 256. If my keyboard will work. Cool. Control I to invert to black. All right. So 256 is pretty small. That's perfect. You don't need it to be big. Oh, caps lock is on. I hid my layer. Perfect. All right. So now the technique I'm going to use is the Lasso Tool. I'll just kind of show you a variety of different ways that we can go about this. If you do the apostrophe, control apostrophe, you'll get the grid lines, and I have not set it up, so this is a perfect chance to teach you. If you go to Preferences, Guides and Grids, where is it? There it is. And then you don't want to do inches, you want to do percent. And you want to do a grid line every 50% with 2 subdivisions, should do us perfect. And now I can see the middle. And this is important because the particle is going to rotate around the middle, right? So as it's sliding upward, I'm also going to have a little bit of rotation to it. And so I kind of want it to feel nice and centered on there. Cool. Now is this snapping? Yes. You'll notice like when I move the lasso through, it like kind of jumps every time it hits one of those. So to do that, you go View Snap, and then it will just cut through these like better. All right, so we kind of want these fiery shapes to come through. And so it's a mixture of circling around it, but also not. So it's like sometimes there's some places where it might kind of cut in or do something like that. Other times it's going to generally follow a circular pattern. If I hit G, I can just fill that in. And that's a fantastic start already. So now what I can do if I'm feeling like I want to take a shortcut is I can go Filter, Blur, Radial Blur, and I can just spin it. So that's kind of fun. Let's do it more. So that was 10. Let's do 40. Yeah, there we go. So now I've got this nice radial motion. Why is it so grainy? Is that a setting that I missed? I'm always like curious. I'm like, I've never seen that before. Maybe just because I'm zoomed in and it's, oh, quality, best. It's like, no, I want bad quality art. Thanks, Photoshop. Okay, there, now it's not as grainy. Okay, cool. So that's a great start for us to work on as a base. So I can come in here and, oh no, I don't want to spin my canvas. Oh, anyone know how to reset the spin? I don't even, it's R. R and escape. Thank you so much. See, I'm learning all the time. Okay. So I'm going to kind of like erase, maybe a little more gentle on the eraser. Here we go. Just put the opacity down a bit. Tone that back. Kind of the same sorts of principles we talked about before, just kind of like erasing away gently and that kind of stuff. All right. Cool. And generally speaking, you want a little more body in the middle, just to help the particles sort of blend together better if you have that. So try not to have like dark black, high contrast right towards the middle of it. Generally speaking, you want something a little more filled in, and then it can become more sparse as it gets out further. You want these nice big areas of soft fall off as well for this kind of style. Again, this is just specifically the sort of hand painted style that we're going for. It's not so much hyper cartoony. It's not necessarily hyper realistic. It's this other option. Nice long areas of fall off as well. The gradation is really going to help us out once it comes into the game. You're going to start noticing these areas a lot better. Get some of those crispy edges coming back in. I'm so glad that I put a hotkey on smudge, because I'm using it constantly. Also glad that we did the radio blur, because that did a lot of the work for me up front, which was really nice. Yeah, I like it. Questions? Do I ever get what? Jaded? About what? I mean, yes, I do, but what about what specifically?
I mean, like if you're doing various versions, like you're stuck in some work and you can't figure out, like you have to make it on a deadline, but you can't make it. That makes any sense?
You know, I think I did a lot more when I was earlier on. Like I'd get really focused on like, this has to be great, this has to be good. I think now I've been at it long enough that I'm like, you know what? Like this just isn't going to be the project where I do my best work. Because if the deadline's short, I'm not going to necessarily kill myself to make it amazing. And I understand like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm getting paid to do this. This is a professional job. And if they want me to do it faster and lower quality, then that's what I'm going to do. I will let them know in advance, hey, heads up, this won't be the best thing I've done ever. But oftentimes they'll say, you know what, we understand that. We're paying that cost in order to get it out faster. And so just do your best that you can in the time you have. And I'm like, cool, sounds good. I have noticed that people that do get upset in that situation, like, oh man, they never give me enough time and I can never make it amazing. I just tell those people, I'm like, go do art at home on your own schedule and make it as pretty as you want. Because if you're trying to do that here, that's not what this is for. You're not always going to have the time at work. Very few studios have the luxury of letting artists really polish it to what they feel is their best work. Because the reality is they have to make money so they can keep you employed. And so asking them to both give you money and give you time to do your best work, I think is a bit selfish and short-sighted, because at the long run, they need to make money off of your work. So yeah, so I try to always remember that in context whenever I'm being put into crunch. I'm like, I have a dream job. This is what I wanted. Like I could have been a lawyer, but I don't want to do that because that's not fun for me. It's fun for other people. Thank goodness that there's people in the world that want to do that stuff, but I'm not one of them.
So, do you do live sketching? Do you prefer live sketching like for inspiration?
Absolutely, and I highly recommend going out, taking photo reference of like streams and rivers and fire or whatever you can find out there that's like effects based, just like they do life drawing with people. Life drawing with effects is also very valuable, and trying to capture the essence of it while it's moving, even watching a video. So I recorded video of a river in the season when there was a lot of runoff from the mountains. The river by our house got a ton of water just flooding through it, and there were some really beautiful eddies and like swirls and stuff, because it's really gross. It's like in the city. And so it was like collecting all this stuff that made the water really foamy as it was running down. So the foam bubbles made really cool patterns as they were swirling around. And I'm like, that's awesome. And so I went and got my camera and filmed it, just so now I have that reference of like foam swirling around on the surface of a large scale river from a bridge up above. So
do you observe a lot from nature? Do you take inspiration from nature?
Not as much as I should, I'll be honest. I shortcut it probably too much, and I copy other art. What?
So you Google reference often?
I look at other effects all the time. Yeah. I have a Pinterest board. If you guys are ever on Pinterest, if you just look up my name, Jason Kaiser at Pinterest, where I've got visual effects subdivided by different categories like fire, water, electricity, etc. And I've pulled all kinds of live action reference and other games and film and other things that I think is really cool. And I haven't made updates on there for maybe a year or two. Every now and then I'll put something on, but I'm not as active now, but I did build up a library on there, and you can find links from those to things other people have linked. And it's kind of a rabbit hole that you get lost in. You spend too much time on there. And that's kind of why I got away from it, because I'm spending a lot of time not just gathering effects, but I'm like, oh, that's a cool recipe. Oh, that's interesting. The internet, you get lost. So yeah, good questions. Any others? Cool. So I'm going to kind of come in here and real quickly get a soft brush for my eraser. Whoa. Yeah, and I'm going to kind of knock back the outer pieces. So it's brightest in the middle and softer in the outside. And you can see this like really subtle fall off, right? And these colors will get picked up really nicely in the engine. Actually, they might be like overly or understated in here, but they'll end up feeling really nice in the engine. All right, so let's see, flame bit. I'll save as a PNG. All right. I'll go over to my video game. So anyone in here, who in here has worked in Unreal Engine before? A couple of you? I know a lot of people most commonly use Unity. I heard in India, I know that's a very common one, but I'm here to talk a little bit about Unreal as well. I know people from Epic are actually here as well doing our workshop right now, which is, thank you for choosing to come here, because I'm sure they're talking about really cool technical stuff. This is probably going to tend more on the artistic end of things. But Unreal's great because when you want to add something, you just come in here and you say flame bit. You just drag it in. And there we go. So now we've got this image, and it's nice and flat. It's got just the grayscale here. There's no alpha channel at all. If you go here and if I turn off like blue, green, and red, there's just solid alpha. So this is not properly compressed at all. But for our purposes, it's fine. You normally wouldn't want to use a PNG for this because it has that built-in alpha channel that's costing you precious file size. All right, so let's go over to our materials folder. And this is actually a material that I've got available for everyone for free. Where is it? If it's in the master parent materials folder. Okay, so this is the VFX Uber shader. Now, if you head over to my YouTube channel, I've got a video talking about materials in Unreal. I'll use this. So it's way easier. Okay, and this is the shader. Now, it looks daunting and overwhelming. On the channel, there's a link to a Google Drive folder where you can get this shader for free, which is fantastic if you're learning Unreal, because one of the big challenges I found learning Unreal was the material system. And it's just a lot of burden on a new artist to just like try to navigate all that. So what I did was, with collaborating with other artists in the industry, and I had this vetted by like some of the best material artists that I know, I built this shader, and we had it evaluated and broken down and figured out section by section what it does. So you can see each one of these is annotated with what it can do. And what's great about it in Unreal is you can actually right click on this here. And I talk a little bit about this in the video as well. And you can say create material instance. And so once you have this instance, you can name it whatever you want. I should have renamed it there. We'll call this our Flamey Flame. All right. And when you open that up, it's much simpler. So there's no like complex nodes. It actually looks a lot more like Unity, right? Where it's just like, oh, what texture do I want? Okay, how do I want to manipulate the UVs on that? You know, if I do custom UVs, I can come in and I can offset my UVs and do all kinds of things there. So by doing this workflow, I've like basically skipped over the steep learning curve that Unreal presents to you almost immediately as an effects artist by just removing the complexity of needing to work in materials. So you can go get that. Now, I can also do a second texture. And it's already got like default textures hooked up. These default textures come with it. They're pretty straightforward. A little fuzzball and a little noise field. I'll get into that noise field in a minute, how we would do that. But let's just go ahead and get started animating in here. And I might jump back around and do that. Oh my gosh, this poor little laptop is compiling shaders. This is my least favorite part of Unreal, is the compiling shaders thinker. Let's see. Do I want custom UVs on this? No, I don't. Every time you check one of these, it has to build a new shader. So like, that's just the way Unreal is set up. It's like, oh, you want to use that feature? Okay, I'm going to make you wait forever. Yeah, now it's waiting even longer. Because on the noise, I want the noise to move, like shimmering fire, but I want the flame up here to stay stationary. So I'm pretty sure I've set that up the way that I'm going to need it. Turn on these textures and leave that alone. I guess while it's thinking, I may as well come over here and do some more work. So we got the single flame going on. Let's go ahead and create, let's go ahead and do our noise real quick. There's some cool things to talk about as we do this part. Let's see. There's no preset for this. 512 by 512. Control I. All right. Oh, you know what? The way that shader is set up, actually, I do need an alpha channel. So I'm going to select both of these. And I am actually going to create a new and I'll save it as a TGA instead of a PNG. So I'm going to end up saving it properly anyway. There we go. So now if I drop that in here, we'll have something more useful. Where'd it go? Extra fire textures. Yeah, delete that. We don't want that one. There we go. So now this has alpha built into it, right? So it's got transparency, which the way that the shader works that I set up, it needs that alpha channel, or it would have just had black squares rising up. All right. So getting back over here, we use some of the same techniques that we've been using. So I want this to tile top to bottom, left to right. There we go. All right. Nope. Let's get rid of that corner. And then we'll add some kind of little thing in here as well. Yeah. And now I can check my work by doing filter, other, offset. And I want to offset it half the amount of my stage, which is 256 by 256. because it's 512 by 512 and seems to be tiling nicely. I don't know that the shapes are what I want, but that's fine. That's what the eraser is for. Come in here. I still have that soft edged eraser. Use a hard edged eraser first. Look at that, the soft edges later. Mm-hmm. Coming in, knocking that back. So we're more or less repeating what we saw before. Let's try to hurry through this. Okay, so we got like fiery shapes that are also tiling, right? Smudge that out. Kind of get this to look good. I don't want to necessarily just go vertical because it's going to be rotating card. So if it's got like vertical lines as it's like rotating sideways, it's going to look kind of weird. So I kind of want it to be omnidirectional noise, so to speak. All right. I probably need a bigger smudge brush. A painter friend of mine told me about a feature. I'm going to go off script here a little bit. If you come over here and you select one of these, chop your brushes, and then you do a little bit of scattering. So scatter a little bit on your smudge. Then your smudge looks really cool. It's like an actual, like, you can like change that. How much it does it, but it makes it feel like a little paintbrush stroke. Things you learn from sitting by people that know what they're doing. That's the thing about effects is like, I don't always know everything about everything, but I know enough about things to be kind of dangerous with it, which is kind of fun. It's creating a fun little effect for us. Kind of flip these out. All right. I talk about pen tilt controlling the rotation on my YouTube channel as well. That's a fun little trick that you can do to actually get this. Right now I'm limited. The shape of the brush tip is actually just always the same, and it's faced in the same direction, so I can't control that. So I have to kind of like work around it, unfortunately. All right, so this is like large areas of black, which I know is going to be bad because that's going to eat away at the particle that we did before, and I don't want like missing chunks coming out of it. I want it to be at least some gray all the time, with maybe little spots of black, maybe little ones, but not this much black. So let's see, after I get this first pass done, and then maybe the white as well, not so white everywhere, because I don't want like, well, you'll see. I'm going to stack up the white beneath it. So I'm going to work from a solid, and oh, that was like too much. Yeah. So now I can come in and sort of redefine my dark areas. Just erasing them away. Everything is just a sloppy shortcut. All right. Whatever gets the job done, right? I like these like strands that sort of bridge gaps and connect things. It feels really cool whenever those can happen. All right. Soft areas and hard areas all working in harmony. Some darker spots going on. So what games are you guys playing? You guys playing video games these days? You're too busy working. I'm playing a lot of Pokemon. Anyone here playing Pokemon? The new Pokemon games? Yeah, that's where it's at. Gotta catch them all. Anyone else playing games? Oh, you have a lot of games on VR? Which one specifically? Lone Echo. I'm not familiar with that one. That sounds cool. Call I saw someone over here had one. No? Yeah? Overwatch? Yeah. Overwatch 2. The Overwatch 2 cinematic made me cry, actually. I was like, they brought all my favorite characters together. I'm so happy. Finally, that moment where they unite. I don't want to spoil it, but finally that moment where they all united was pretty epic. I loved it. It was very satisfying. Who else? I couldn't hear. Oh, Red Dead Redemption online? Wait, Red Dead's online? Oh, I thought it was just a single player experience. Shows what I know. I need to stay more current. I actually don't have a PlayStation or an Xbox. And so I have been out of the loop on all these epic single player experiences for years now. Oh, it's on PC? Shows what I know again. Maybe I should check it out. I've heard nothing but good things about it. It looks amazing. I'm actually from Utah and Idaho, which is basically like that terrain, like those environments, like that's my home. Like it looks like that there. And so I saw videos of it. I'm like, oh, I've been there. It's so cool. And it still looks like that today in some places. Like there's a lot of areas that are unsettled and you can just go out in the mountains hiking and it's beautiful. I love that landscape. I miss it. And California, to an extent, kind of looks like that, depending on the part that you're in. It has parts that look like that. Okay, I don't even know what I'm doing right now. I don't know which layer I'm on. I just wanted, yeah, there we go. I have these like weird little seams that I'm trying to like get out. There we go. Okay. So this noise is probably good. It's probably good enough. That's my, I don't want Untitled 1, I want Untitled 2. That's such a better name. And then we'll do another TGA, and we'll call this one noise. Let's make some noise. All right. Cool. How's that material compiling going? It looks like it's done. Click on these and save them, just in case it crashes, because you never know. That opened another window. Oh, you know what? I forgot that step where we take all these and we convert them into an alpha channel. If you're not familiar with the different steps I just took, I selected multiple layers by holding Shift, and then I drug them down to here, create new, and then I do Control E to merge them together. And then I can copy that and paste it up here in a new channel. All right. Yes.
Is there any specific reason as to why you still have the same data in RGB channels rather than just in the alpha channel in this case? Because it depends on the shader.
Yes, that is exactly right. So the reason I did it this way is literally because this is how it works in the League of Legends engine. And I wanted the same style sensibility where So very often you have a white to black color and then a white to black alpha that kind of matches, which gives you a certain feeling on the material itself, or on the quality of the flame. I actually might end up going through and whiting out the color. We're probably going to do that because I'm going to want the fire to blend together nicely and not have the darks in there. It depends on also if you want it to be an additive blend or just like an emissive blend versus like a diffuse blend. What you want to do in the color channel versus the alpha channel. And I just like leaving that in the texture directly. It's, for me, I think it's better for a beginner to learn that way versus like when you get more advanced, you're like, yeah, plug this texture in for the color and this texture in for the alpha. It's easy to lose track of what's happening and what you're seeing. And this way it kind of ties it together in Photoshop just in one place, so you can kind of learn that way. That's why I like to teach it this way. And it is how the League engine works. In the League of Legends engine, you can't bring in a separate texture for the alpha. It's like you bring in one texture and whatever is in the alpha channel is the alpha, and whatever's in the color channel is the color. And then you can change the UVs separately in the material there. But like as far as the information it's reading, that's what it does. And then for optimization, we just, when we don't need an alpha channel in something, it's just additive, we'll strip that out in here and import it that way. And the format we use is DDS, so it knows that it doesn't have any alpha information.
Gotcha. So are you using like one of those features where it's like being able to find alpha blending, so you can switch between additive and alpha blending?
We have.
Oh, is it like the Diablo 3?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about in the talk. I think we have that option. I don't know if it got added or not. So I spent a couple years off of League and then came back. And I don't know. There are a lot of new things added that might be one of them. I think it is actually. I think we can import, or sorry, we can tell it, use the alpha channel to tell you that information. So wherever it's, wherever it's black, it's blended, and wherever it's white, it's additive. I think we have something like that. That's a cool little feature you can add in, and you can build that in Unreal as well. I don't think I built it into this shader though. Maybe the 2.0 version. I'll do that. Okay, did I? Yeah, okay. It's got the alpha information. Save. Oh, I forgot to move this over. Let's put this over here real quick, where it should be. Move here into our material instances. Okay, so Flamey Flame is looking good. There we go. So that's with the fuzzball. We don't want the fuzzball. What we want is this guy. So I can, once I've navigated to it, so what I did was I basically clicked on this browse button with it open, which selects it in my browser. And then when I come over here to the material, I just pop it in like so. And then similarly, if I click here on the noise in my browser, I just pop that in. There we go. Cool. Offset V and offset. So this is what it's going to kind of look like. What's that doing? Why is it just glowing more? That's weird. That's not right. Real time. No. Okay, hang on. Stand by for a minute. Something's going on and I don't know what it is. So normally when I would set this to like 0.5, it would offset, but it's not changing. Do I have like, does it need like live update? That's weird. Maybe it's a good time for a break and I can figure it out during the break. Because I'm changing textures, what? So he's talking in the microphone, I can't hear you.
I think you should try the other one, yellow.
The scale? Yeah, like for some reason it's not updating over here, and normally it would. And I don't know why, because I usually don't work on this laptop. It might be some setting that I'm missing, but I can totally dig into it during the break. I think it's time for a break anyway. Yeah, you have a question?
So, could you use level option to see how it dissolves in Untitled or some other end? Is the level option in Photoshop, right?
An option in Photoshop to check what? Oh, levels. Oh, a dissolve? Yeah, so this is not going to dissolve, but I know what you're asking. That would be a threshold setting. So yeah, you could check that in Photoshop and see it. I mean, we could see, like, this technically could be a dissolve map, right? So if I wanted to, I could come in here. Why is that? Okay. And I could do a threshold and it would dissolve away. That's what you're asking about. And I can see that there's a seam right there, all that kind of thing. So, but yeah, that's definitely something you could do. But I'm not going to use dissolve on this. I guess I could, but my plan wasn't to use dissolve. It's just going to be a simpler fade out like this does. Because just by fading out, this feels pretty nice. It actually might, I wonder if this is using dissolve actually. I'm looking at it closer. Because it's in the shader, we have the option for dissolve. Nope. Yeah, so this just has pan speed. We'll end up using that instead. But he's got his noise here and then the fire there. So we move this up and we can see with the UV offset that the noise, which tiles top to bottom, left to right, just keeps infinitely scrolling and it feels kind of fiery, right? It's pretty cool. And what I'm noticing is just that thing I was afraid of where, because it's multiplying dark values and dark values together, this is too dark. And so areas are just getting completely lost and never showing up at all. So to fix that, it's really hard. I just make this make it less transparent. Whoops. There we go. So if I just make this white layer that I did down here, right? Because remember, I just added white beneath the strandy layer. So it looks like that. And if I just bump it up, then it'll lighten the whole thing across the board. And now we'll try that. So I have to do that whole process again, where I take this, copy it, go back to my channels. There we go. Save it as TGA. And then fun trick, you can just come into Unreal, find your texture and go, I believe it's under Asset Actions. Re-import? No, it's up here. Re-import. There we go. Ooh, is that still not good? It's like a little better, but it's just kind of... You know what I should do? Is that thing I was talking about of just making it all white, because I think the blacks are like clipping together in a bad way. So if I just come over here and I hide, well, no, I mean the easiest thing to do is just make this white. There we go. So if I just make it white in the color channel, instead of having like the darks, but the biggest offender is probably the other one, so I'm going to change that one too. So if I just make this guy here white, which I think is what we saw in that original texture, it was white in there as well, with just the alpha channel having the information, it's probably going to give us a better result. And we'll just re-import these. Cool. So now you can't tell what they are, but we know that it's this. Cool. So now that isn't working anymore. I think it's just the way the shader's working. Sorry guys, bear with me. I'm going to put this opacity back down into the range of sensibility, like so. There we go. All right. These are the steps that just come up every time you're working. It's like, I just want to make art. There's lots of steps to get there. All right. Let's see how that's feeling. Nowhere to go. Flamey flame. Yeah, it's not quite what I intended, but how different is his feeling? Yeah, his is similar because he has his noise looks like he has color information in his as well. So it's good enough for me. We're going to stick with it that way. All right, so getting into here, I'm going to go ahead and make edits inside of this already working particle system. And I believe this is included. If you get the Uber shader from my YouTube channel, this flame, I believe, is in the file, if I'm not mistaken. Just to have like a working example of the shader in operation. So you can check that out. But so if we go over to the flames body, yes, there we go. So the way this works, yeah, let's just create a new emitter. We'll just start from scratch. And we'll hide all these. I'm going to actually hide them instead of soloing that one group because I don't want them to come back. Wait. Why is there stuff over there but I can't scroll? It's like the scroll bar is all messed up. Oh well. That works. Okay. So we got there. delete that. All right, so if you create a new particle spread emitter, you just click out in the black and do a new one. We're going to come into required, and that's where I plop in my material. So if I go to Flamey Flame, and then I say browse, and then I can come over here. Another thing I can do is I can click over here and type in Flamey Flame, and it'll find it for me. Cool, so now I've got fire. Tutorial over, right? No, so to fix this, because it needs a lot of fixing, we want it to have some variation, right? So we want to right click and say rotation, initial rotation. We want that to be randomized. So in order to randomize a rotation in Cascade, stay with me on this one. You click on the rotation module over here, you do the drop down under start rotation and then distribution. And by default, it's set from 0 to 1. So it's 0% to 100%. Whoa, I just tapped the screen to get a hair off. All right, so now we've got this coming up at different random rotations, which is pretty cool. We've got rotation speed, rotation over life. Or is it rotation rate? Yeah, initial rotation rate. Okay, that's better. So now it's like going to be, if we drop this down, it's going to be rotating randomly. I want it from -1 to 1. So it's kind of got this like rotationalness to it. And now it's like feeling very stampy and repeated. To switch up some of the repetition that we're seeing in there, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, give it a little bit of pan speed. There we go. 0.25 and I don't know, 0.15 or something like that. So now, oh, here it is in game. You can see it's kind of like feeling pretty cool. All right. It's not entirely what I want. Still needs a few more things. It feels a little bit aggressive, I think. I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like they're just kind of popping out at the bottom. So we're going to want to change the scale over life. Size by life. You generally want to do a lot of these drop downs to find options that are otherwise hidden. It's like how it functions. So at different time things, there's like inval is the time percentage. So it starts from 0 and then we want it to scale up at like 20% of the time. And then at 100% of the lifetime, we want it to scale back down. So I'm going to have it start small and then scale up quite a bit to like 0.8 and then end at 1. And then what you want to do is you want to lock X, Y, and Z. So you only have to change one value. You don't have to change all three on X, Y, and Z. Okay. Got it. And then we want the velocity to be different. So it's moving pretty fast. And we don't want it to move so fast. Okay, so it's moving a little bit side to side, which is perfect. And then too much in an upward direction. So probably what we want there is something more along the lines of like this, like 15 to 20. And I can probably chill out the rotation speed as well. It's like rotating pretty quickly. So maybe like -0.5 to +0.5. Size by life, it looks like it's scaling down. Is that scaling down? It is. I meant for this to be 1. So it like keeps scaling up and out as it fades out, which is more what you want. All right. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. And then we've got, if you guys have questions as I'm on this part as well, feel free to hit me up. Okay, so looking at this, I'm overall pretty happy with it. There is like this weird stringy shape that's like, it's hard to put my finger on what it is. Probably if I looked at it in Photoshop, I'd find it's like maybe one of these shapes. I'd have to do some investigating. I don't think it's anything in here. This is pretty smooth and good. But I do wonder, if I look at my material, and this is a lot of like jumping around because it's a lot of jumping around because like you'll find with effects that it could be any number of things that you need to adjust to get the look that you're after. So like if I move this, yeah, I feel like too much of my shape is being defined by this noise texture. So this is really like the refinement process of coming in here, just saying, okay, I want to adjust. Probably put this back up once again. It's amazing what a little difference, what a little change will make a big difference sometimes. Because I think I had it like this before and I didn't like it, but oh well. Oh, you know what though? Did I actually re-import it? I think I did. I did. Re-import. Yeah. Now I'm seeing much more of that that rounded shape with just a subtle noise coming across it, right? Cool. So that's feeling, I like the motion overall. It's feeling pretty good. I feel like some of the shapes are coming through, but probably when I start adding in color, that's going to be helped. Whoa, how did I make it so small? I've literally never seen this in my life. That emitter UI is tiny. That's hilarious. Go laptop. Okay. I think I can still work with. Can you guys see? You cannot even read it. That is so tiny. Oh well, I'll just call out what they are because I can barely read it here. I'll tell you what it is that I'm clicking. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, so I'm just curious to see if I just came in here and did a gradient map. And what's fun about gradient maps is that you can copy and paste them. So over here I have my gradient map and I can double click on it and I can just call this magical flame. And then I click new. And now it's got magical flame in there. So now when I come over to this and I click into here, I can just select magical flame. And I say, okay. So now in my color, I've got these colors set up like I had from the concept. And then I come over here into PNG, no, not PNG, TGA, flame bit. Alrighty. And now I re-import. And this is going to be wildly different, and I don't even know how it's going to look. Oh, there you go, not too bad. So one downside to this is that the hot blue stays on it down here, and it's still hot blue up here, and the dark purple is down here. And so there's no sense of it being hot at the fuel source and then cooling off to those colors like we had in the concept. So in the concept, over here, it's like generally warmer down here, and then like I've kind of like faded it out as it gets away from the source. So let's see if we can replicate some of that, at least in part. Now, if I come into my color settings in the particle system, this is color over life, I promise, that's what it says, even though you can't see it at all. I can adjust my colors here, which is down pretty low. Some of you can probably see it. I'll move it up here so you can see it better. Let's see. So I want to start it out with at time. Remember, time equals 0%, right? And I can click on this white bar here, and that's my color. And I want it to be this hot yellow here, or hot cyan there. And then I want this to transition to purple, like a dark purple. Okay, and it does not work. And the reason why it's not working is because I put too much saturation in my texture over here. So we'll add another overlay. We'll do a saturation. And we will remove saturation a bit. So it's kind of this pale vibe, and then we'll lighten it up. So it just has like a touch of that color in there. We don't really need a lot of color information in here because we're going to drive most of the color in our particle system. And this is the back and forth that you do. You have different levers to pull, like how much color do I put in my texture? How much color do I put in engine? And that's always a back and forth that you're going to want to do when you're animating color. Okay, so that should be good. Come over here and re-import. Cool. So there you go. Now what we've got is like it's darker at the edges, a bit darker at the edges all the time, but it still has that like much hotter blue core as it's rising up. Feels pretty good. I feel like, so the funny thing about fire is in real life, it actually moves very, very fast, right? Especially campfire size, it's like flickering around like crazy. There's something about slowing it way down that just makes it feel more magical. And so I'm going to just try that just to see. So this is initial velocity. I think what I want to put on it is some drag. So if you go to acceleration, you can put drag on there. And that's just going to slow it way down. And this is, let's see. I'm trying to like frame this nicely. Oh, there we go. So by slowing it down, even with just a bit of drag, it's helping it feel like more magical and ethereal, like smoky wisps coming out really. And it's starting to feel pretty good. And then what's really fun is when you go into variation with sub UV. And again, I want to make sure I'm keeping you guys on track for being out on time. So if we look over here, Flame's body. Oh my gosh, his is like a totally different scale and everything. So his has a lot of cool stuff going on with like the color over life where it's like actually turning to dark. And you can check this out on there. But he has something here called sub-image index, which is what you need when your material is like his, where it has like the 4. Remember, he had like the 4 images instead of just 1, so it randomly chooses. And so on required, yeah, on required, you want to come in here. It's towards the bottom, not all the way. Where is it? Sub UV. And you want the interpolation method to be random with 2 by 2, right? And then, so you set that up in the yellow required, and then on the sub-image index, which you can just right click and say sub UV, sub-image index. That's where you come in and you say that you want it to be, yeah, you want it to be at 0 it's 0, and at 1 it's 3 because it's base 0. So like it counts 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's 4. 0, 1, 2, 3. That's 4 frames, 2 by 2. So that's what it's doing in there. I know it's like way overly complicated beyond what it needs to be, but that's the way that they've set it up. So if I do this, I wonder, I'm going to copy this emitter and see if I can hack it all together quickly. Oh, yeah, I'll move that emitter over with the arrow keys and then hide this. Okay. So we've got this. Now I want, what do I want to pull over from mine? Really, it's just the color over life. And then hide that color over life. That's not working like I hoped. There's some other things in his texture that I would need to change because, yeah, his texture is not built the same. But you can start to see how this might all come together. And also you can see how based on like the textures and materials that you've got, it's like wildly different what you're going to, results you get out of it. And it's very important to remember that you don't want the tool to dictate how your end product looks. You always want to try to be in control of it and be proactive about what you are after. I think that's the big advantage of having that concept art. I get a lot of questions about, do I do my own concepts, or do I have, or do I have, is there a concept artist on my team who is kind enough to take the time to give me a concept? And really the answer is both. So sometimes I have a concept and it makes my life a lot easier to just have that inspiration already. But if I don't have a concept, the temptation might be to just dive in and start working. But I would encourage you all to take time first to do that phase, just because you've even seen in this session, I'm like, it's nice to just like pop back and be like, oh yeah, like I kind of like what's working in the concept about this and that. And it's not happening in game, because you do spend time with things broken and you're in like node networks and really complicated menus and things. And it's hard to remember even what that initial drawing was. And so being able to just check back with it is really helpful for engaging that side of your brain. Well, I'm kind of drawn to a close on this. We've still got another 14 minutes. And honestly, my favorite part about these experiences is like, you guys have my time. And so I want to spend time engaging with you. And whether you want to do Q&A with me on the microphone, or if you want to come up one-on-one and just take the time to chat, I'm here. I'm also here like throughout the day today. I'll be here tomorrow. But if you have any questions now, or there's more things that you wanted to see, they're like, oh, what was that other menu? Or can you go back to that other thing? Like, I mean, the time is yours. I'm super flexible. So we can kind of bounce around. If you have things in mind, that's great. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep kind of noodling and kind of hanging out up here and waiting for people to come up. If you're kind of shy and you like the one-on-one experience, we can definitely handle that after as well, like off camera too. So that's totally fine. Make sure you stick around. So any questions to kick us off? What was that? I couldn't hear. Could you repeat the question?
Did you use any material dynamic parameter? There's a node called material dynamic parameter.
Did I use any materials?
In material, there's a node called dynamic parameter.
Oh, dynamic parameters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we could spend a little bit of time in the material. For anyone who's curious about how materials in Unreal work, let's see. So there are a couple of dynamic parameters. For those of you who aren't familiar, the way that materials work in Unreal, you can actually say, particle system, I want you to talk to the material. So the particle system might say, I want this to become more yellow and then orange or whatever. And then you pipe that into the material, and the material takes that information, yellow and orange and so forth, and it does whatever you want with it. So like an example would be right here, we have the dynamic parameter set up to do how much it offsets the vertices. So like on a mesh, I can say, make these vertices wobble and wave and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And the dynamic parameter that I pass in from the particle system tells it how much it wants to do that. So it's like at the beginning of the life of the particle, we want it really spiky and far out. And then at the end, by the end of the life, we want it to like feed back in, or you can do the opposite of that. And then the other one is the alpha Fresnel. So Fresnel is really fun because on a mesh, you have the soft edges that like fade off. So if you have a sphere, normally it's got a very crisp edge that's very obvious, but you can also hide the edge with like a blur sort of effect, because as the edges get more perpendicular to the camera angle, the alpha fades out, and so it looks nice and soft. So you can say how much you want that softness to be soft over time. So the particle can start off with a really crisp edge and then blur over time as the mesh does its thing. So those are the kinds of things you can do with like values with dynamic parameters. And I left 2 of them open because I know oftentimes people want to do custom stuff. And so the material is very extensible. You can add things to it as well. Or you could even swap these out if you don't use these. You can easily just say, no, I want the first 2 to do something else. And you can bypass these sections of things. Like if you don't want vertex offset, literally you could delete everything that's coming off of this chord over here, and this would all get removed over here. And that whole feature would just be gone from the shader, and then you have one more option available to you in a dynamic parameter. It's a good question. Any more?
So we have so much flexibility in how the surface looks because of the materials.
Mm-hmm.
What about the physics? Like you drag, tap, drag.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do things more customized in our applications?
Yeah, so you're asking about customizing the physics on a thing. So there's a few ways to do that. Niagara has a lot more features. I'm working on Cascade, and Niagara has a lot more available. It's currently in beta, so I don't use it a lot to teach because it's not as accessible for a beginner to just dive in to Niagara. But definitely there's some cool things I've seen in there that you can do with physics and like adding custom things. If you want to use these particles as GPU sprites, that basically means that you're going to be much more limited in what the material can do, but you're going to have a lot more access to, like, you could use a vector field where it's basically a box that has all these little arrows in it, a field of vectors literally that shove particles around in those directions. And so you can have it like wave and wobble and do all kinds of crazy stuff, is typically what you would do to get that sort of dynamic physics. You can also fake it. So you could do things like orbit. So you can like have a particle like just like spiral. And this works really great for like really cheap fireflies. So you have like a firefly and just kind of have it like spiral here, and then another one has a random spiral somewhere else, and they kind of like wave around and do their thing. You put drag on those so that they kind of like slow down and then fade out, and then new ones come in. It's actually pretty slick that you can do. What's that?
Faking those things. Vector field.
Yeah, you could use a vector field for the fireflies as well.
Yeah. I mean, for faking the physics and all.
That's exactly what vector fields are great for, is faking the physics for sure. Yeah. There's some wacky things you can do with, like, you point things off in a direction and you have them like slow down. We use a lot of really low tech techniques on League of Legends all the time. That's like generally our MO, because the game engine is not super sophisticated necessarily, but we put a lot of artistry and a lot of time and care into getting the timing and the compositions just the way we want. And so, like, for example, we don't have GPU sprites and vector fields in League of Legends, for instance. And so we only have the tricks like the orbit and all that. We have things like mesh emitter. So mesh emitter is cool because you can do things like model a mesh and then have particles shoot out of the mesh in the direction of the normals. So if like it's a hill like this, right, the particles over here are going to kind of shoot out this way, and then as they round up, they're going to shoot out in whatever direction the normals are facing. So we can use that to fake all kinds of stuff, because you can have like some faces over here and then over here and then like all kinds of different things, and then when it emits, they kind of just fly in the directions of those.
We can't use a mesh as an emitter here in Cascade. Or can
Yeah, using mesh emitters in here. It is a thing. You just have to know how to find it. It's, yeah, I won't go into it because it's a challenge, but I did get it to work once. You have to do like a whole thing, and I think you have to like expose it for Blueprint to use or something like that. But you can get it to work in Unreal, but it's a little bit more involved.
I think that's why, because Niagara, I mean, you can do everything what you want. Like you can emit, you can use mesh as an emitter here, there, and everything.
Yeah, in Niagara.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Niagara, just so everyone has context, Niagara, you can do anything you want, which is the cool part about it. But then the terrible part about it is you can do anything you want. And so it becomes very complicated and very challenging to like figure out where all the buttons are and how to do it all if you're new to effects. And that's why I don't recommend it as much for beginners right now. Again, it's just in beta, and they've told me that they are working on building in a new, like a more intuitive user interface in a later phase once they've got the base functionality working. So that's like what I heard from them. I'm not from Epic by any means, but that's my understanding of it, is that the usability is coming. But right now, if you're more technically minded, I think, yeah, dive right in and you can have a lot of fun with it. It's definitely very powerful what it can do. Cascade is largely unsupported, so it hasn't received many new features over the past however many years, and so it's dated. It's not the most optimal way to make effects, but it does happen to be the best out there that I've found for being able to do a lot of things and also being easy to learn. So it's very powerful. It's just, yeah, things like that. The edge cases get a little bit tricky.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, I'd like to just open it up. If we can talk one-on-one after this, and we can spend some more time chatting after the session. I want to make sure you have time to ask any one-on-one questions before you head off to whatever you have next. Thank you, everybody.